Hey everybody, and welcome to the PC Gamer Show. My name is Tom Marks, back from 2 weeks off. With me today, two very special guests. We have Charlie Cleveland and Max McGuire from Unknown Worlds, developers of Subnautica. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. How are you, Tom?
Good. Good. I'm doing real well. I'm glad to be back. You guys haven't been here, but to regular viewers of the show, I've been away. I was first at an event 2 weeks ago, and then I was in Portland last week, and it's nice to be back. It's nice to be back with the family and have you guys joining us here.
Excellent.
We've got a great show for you today. First off, we're going to be talking about just what we've been playing recently, of course, and then we'll be discussing Nostalrius, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Blizzard's, or a World of Warcraft private server that was free and Blizzard recently shut down, and kind of the ins and outs of that. We'll also be talking about Rust finally implementing enforced random genders based on your Steam ID. It's very strange. It's a nuanced conversation to have.
I need this.
And then, of course, we'll be looking at Subnautica. For those of you who can see, we have a Rift right here. We're going to be throwing Max, Max, you kind of handle the Oculus side of Subnautica.
Yeah, I ported it to VR.
Cool.
Not exclusively Oculus, but right now we're on Oculus. In the future, maybe we'll be supporting some other stuff.
Well,
and it really was a port, right? I mean, you had to change quite a bit to make it work.
Yeah, it's very much a porting process for us.
And a little bit of design changes, camera changes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I imagine UI has to be adjusted as well.
Yeah, lots of little things.
Well, we'll get a first-hand look at that, and we're going to be streaming live the Oculus Rift experience, which is pretty cool. We have not done that on the show yet. And then, of course, finally, we'll be taking your questions from Twitch chat about whatever's on your mind in PC gaming this week, or anything for Max or Charlie about Subnautica. But first, the portion of our show where we talk about what we've been playing recently, I'll kind of open up so you guys can lead in. Your answers might be Subnautica, which is totally fine. We have that a lot. Yeah, but we'll get into that where we get there. First, I have 3 weeks of things I've been playing to talk about, so I want to.
On the road, you've been playing?
Not as well. Interestingly, I guess we'll lead with this. I was in Portland, just kind of visiting the city and visiting some friends, and I went to this place called OMSI, which is the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. Mm-hmm. I got to go on the submarine that played the Red October in the Red October.
Okay, now you're talking.
Yeah, and it was exciting. Yeah. It was the best. But the other thing that was happening at OMSI was they had an exhibit called Game Masters, just happened to be there while I was in town, and it was this 2-floor museum exhibit dedicated to video games, and it was really, really cool because it opened with, they had Missile Command and Centipede and Pac-Man and all the old classic arcade games, and then you got a little farther into the exhibit and they had Mario and Zelda and Sonic, and then you got a little farther and they had started having things like, they had a booth playable with Warcraft 3 and Shadow of the Colossus, and then they got into Dance Central and Rock Band. And then the whole upstairs was broken by developer. So there was like a Tim Schafer section, Will Wright.
Tim Schafer actually there?
No.
Like glass case?
No, that would be pretty cool though. But no, they had Will Wright had a section, Peter Molyneux. Yes. Then they had like a Notch section with Minecraft. It was really
Notch section with one game.
Yeah, a Notch with
one amazing game,
which had a crowd of kids around it the entire time. So
how can that be?
Speaks for that one game.
It's like finally a place to play Minecraft. Let's go to the exhibit.
There aren't enough of those, weird. I don't think.
Was this a roving thing, or is this permanently on installation?
I don't know if it's moving around, but it was a really cool thing to see, and
it sounds actually really wonderful.
It was a hilarious thing to see, like have the the games writer show up to the museum and there be games there, but it was like it was really fun. It was a blast,
especially the stuff that requires specialized hardware like Centipede. Centipede isn't Centipede unless you're playing it at the actual machine.
Yeah.
With the trackpad or whatever, spinning wheel. What is it
called?
Trackball.
Trackball. Yeah, the trackball. The trackball on Missile Command was. I never played Missile Command.
Crystal Castles.
On a.
Oh man.
Like on the arcade machine.
Actual machine.
Yeah. It's hard. That is a hard game.
Oh yeah. But it's that's part of the experience. You couldn't. I mean, did you play it with a 2600 joystick?
No, it was with the trackball.
But originally before.
I think I just only played Flash versions of it.
Okay, yeah, it's not the same.
I'm a youngin.
Kids these days, they just don't know.
I'm a baby. But that was cool. The other things I've been playing recently are I got to play excuse me, Hyper Light Drifter. This was the game I would have talked about 2 weeks ago. I played Hyper Light Drifter. It was one of the first games that I just like in a long time that I just like sat down and beat in a day.
Wow. Okay.
And I think I played it for like, or I guess it was slightly over 2 days, but the bulk of it was one day. Yeah. And I was really into that game.
It's been a long time coming, huh?
Yeah, it has. And it's a game that I've sort of kept at arm's length because I knew it was just going to come out when it came out, and like that was fine, and I didn't want it any other way, but I also didn't want to get like crazy
spoiled
over it and spoiled. Yeah. And I'm glad I did that because I wasn't really sure what to expect, and Hyper Light Drifter was a lot of fun. It was this really cool kind of Zelda-y, almost a little bit of Dark Souls thrown in there, a little bit of like the aesthetic was so much like Fez too, which I love. It was a lot of fun. It was a very, very cool thing. And then the last game I've been playing a lot of is Enter the Gungeon, because that's what I was playing actually when I was in Portland, when we came back from a full day of like walking around and we just wanted to veg out. Enter the Gungeon was the good option because it's portable too. It does not take much. Yeah, it was just I've just had a really good week or two of like varied games in places I wouldn't expect, and a lot of indie hits that have been a long time coming, and Dark Souls 3, but we talked about that on the show last week, so I think I don't need to go into too much more of it. But I'm interested to hear, what have you guys been like, what do you spend your time with when not developing?
It's such a lame answer, but I mean, I basically play board games now. So, I mean, I've been in the industry, video game industry for so long that it's a pretty rare video game that really captures my attention, which is just sad, but it's true. And also I spend so much time on a computer, and I have historically for just dozens of years. I do not want to be on a computer when I'm at home. So for me, I can scratch the gaming itch with board games, and I can have people over for wine and dinner, and we can get into a really wonderful board game. That's my terrible. Well, then I'm interested.
What game did you play last? What's the last board game that excited you?
There's so many board games I play. I haven't played Time Stories yet. I'm really looking forward to getting a group together. Time Stories is interesting because it's a board game you play once. Like, what the hell? Like, you can play it once. It's a $40 game you get 3 hours out of.
Wow.
And to me, I find that fascinating because, we haven't seen that kind of game before.
Yeah.
And what people are saying about the 3 hours is it's so strong, it's absolutely worth it.
So
wow.
Can you only play it once because there's no replay value? Or
it has no replay value.
The game in the process?
There are games that you destroy as you play, like Risk Legacy and Pandemic Legacy. But then, this one you don't destroy, you just basically spoil it. It's kind of like a mystery type game. So as you know, if you know too much about the game, you wouldn't want to play it again.
Right.
I just find that fascinating. I'm still seeing new stuff in board games all the time, and of course I'm seeing new stuff in video games too. But it's just the format. I just don't want to be in front of a monitor.
That reminds me of this person that made this kind of artsy game where they built it on a laptop. They put it on their laptop, and then they.
Oh, Colin Northway's shader game?
Excuse me?
Colin Northway made the shader game?
Jason Rohr's game, yeah.
Where you
pass it around between people and each person plays it a little bit and they can never play it again.
No. This is actually something different. This is apparently a lot of different versions of this.
Yeah,
no, somebody made a game where
they're all taking this from board games, by the way.
Clearly.
I'm just telling you that right now.
No, the idea was that they wanted to make a game that was like a vinyl record where you could never share it or something like that. And so they put it on a laptop and then they removed all the network cards or anything from it. And they cemented the USB ports so that you could never get anything out of this laptop ever again. And the idea was that eventually the game would die with the computer, and it was the only copy of the game. All of the source code was on the computer, and when that laptop died, the game was gone forever.
It's so funny. It's so funny to see people try so hard with video games to do what board games do effortlessly. It's just funny. It seems kind of artificial.
Well, but you could say the same thing. Like, each medium has its strengths.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
things that I'm sure board games try to do that are effortless on a PC.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, just any game with a huge rule book, like basically a video game can do better because it can enforce all the rules for you. And I think I would guess that 50%, this is like a total guess, obviously, 50% of all board game sessions ever played are probably played wrong. Which is, I mean, it's just astonishing. I mean, the amount of times, I love reading rules. I love it. I love designing rules. I love coming up with the rules and reading them and talking about them. And I still play board games wrong all the time. And I know other people are even worse than I am. So, Yeah.
Is that a bug? Is that the board game version of a bug if like a rule is explained wrong?
Yeah, I guess so. Or if, like you bug / bad design, right? Because you created a game which is easy to play wrong and doesn't show you when it's wrong.
Right.
You know, or it's really easy to play it to completion without realizing that you did something wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like Magic cards needs they need
true.
judges just to get through that.
That's
sort of
getting
thing.
better, luckily.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Well, what about you, Max? What have you been playing in between?
The Witness.
Oh,
It's
nice.
been my obsession since it came out. I think I'm almost done with it.
Cool.
It's a little hard to tell in that game.
Yeah.
I thought I was almost done about 20 hours ago.
Oh man.
Okay.
But it's like the perfect game for my lifestyle, where you can play for 5 minutes. Like the time that you spend away from the game is just as meaningful as the time you spend with the game.
I like that. That sounds
There's
nice.
nothing that's gonna like jump out and kill you. So if like I need to get up and my son, I have a 3-year-old, and he's like tearing apart the house or something.
Right.
I can go deal with that, and the game hasn't annihilated me in the meantime.
Your team hasn't like vote kicked you and
Yeah, and it's just like I don't know, it's just such a rich game that it feels like this is worth my time.
Worth your time,
playing
yeah.
This game.
Yeah, that's a game I've been dipping back into occasionally too, because I binged
me
it for
too.
a little while, and I love just kind of jumping back in here and there. But I agree, it's one of the ones where I have no idea how long that game is, and I've resisted looking up like this is the hour length, right? I have no idea when I'm gonna run out of stuff to do in it,
Right.
which is exciting.
I'm pretty sure the answer to that question is you will never probably run out of things to do in that game.
Uh-huh.
I think like taking that game to 100% completion is probably a monumental task.
that compared.
well, like Braid, right? Braid was like
Well, they're just like I don't know. You
super
just keep
impossible.
like discovering more and more things in the world, and there's always like it's kind of like the main track of puzzles, I guess, to get to the end of the game. But there's a lot of puzzles that are off that, which are optional.
End of the game in heavy air quotes there.
Yeah, I guess.
yeah.
I'm really interested to see what happens when you finish the last puzzle.
Yeah.
And
Nothing.
I'm very close, so.
Yeah. Are you sure?
There's nowhere left to go from where I am in the world. So.
Okay.
That's when you hit the
Yeah.
second map that they
Yeah.
haven't
Right,
shown
exactly.
publicly
Yeah.
yet.
Second world. Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason they were developing that game for 7 years or whatever.
Been a long time.
It
Yeah.
certainly shows. I mean,
Yeah.
the craftsmanship is just.
Yeah.
phenomenal.
I remember they released a dev update about a year or two ago, actually, where they were looking at all of the architecture of the island, and they'd said, we finished the island, but now we're going around and we're saying, this post doesn't look like it goes into the ground correctly, so we're going to put some brackets on it to make it look like it's more accurate. This staircase isn't mounted to this wall in a structural way, so we're going to go back in and adjust the visuals, all just aesthetic things, but just to
Yeah.
make that world look more fleshed out, more real.
And with that game, I guess the consistency is so important. That you don't want anything to distract you from, like if a post. I mean, the whole point is those details, right? So if a post
Yeah.
doesn't look like it's held up right, it's going to grab your attention and it's going to distract you from
Yeah.
the actual puzzle.
Yeah, it does.
So that's nice. I mean, Max and I have been talking a lot about this recently, and we love the idea of making not even a small game, but a game that is perfect. Because we've just been working on 2 really big games, and from our perspective, they're really big, and because we're a small team, and we really admire people who can make small games and do them perfectly.
Yeah.
Like for me, Crypt of the Necrodancer keeps coming up, and Braid probably, though Braid is obviously a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, oddly enough, the first game that came to my mind when you said that was You Have to Burn the Rope. Did you ever play that?
You have no.
You have to
Cut the Rope.
Everyone should go look up this game. It's a free Flash game that came out probably a decade ago or something like that, where it's just one boss fight. It's incredibly easy. It's maybe a minute long, and then you get like a 2 to 3 minute credit sequence with a song congratulating you on playing the game, and that's like the whole gag, and it's just brilliant. It's like this tiny little bite-sized thing that's just like
Interesting.
great.
Spelunky also comes to mind. I think Spelunky is. I mean, I know. Actually, I read you guys gave Spelunky a perfect score.
I don't think we've ever given anything a perfect score, but it got Game of the Year for us from 2014.
Okay. I think Spelunky is perfect. I don't think there's. I just don't think
Charlie
there's something
Cleveland gives it a perfect score.
Yeah.
for whatever that's worth. Not much, but it is. It is perfect. I don't know how you could improve that game.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the highest score we've ever given on PC Gamer is maybe a 98, but I believe it's a 96.
Is that Max Payne 2?
No doubt.
I like. Yeah.
No doubt.
Do you remember what it was?
The highest score?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
I think it must have been something like Half-Life 2 or something
Or,
high
yeah,
up there.
Orange Box or something.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure, but I know there's probably somebody who's subscribed for years in the chat right now or listening on iTunes who knows exactly what our highest scored game is.
Which is weird. They would know more about your institution than you do.
Yeah, they're shunning me.
Not
for,
surprising, but
Hey,
it's strange.
I'm like I said, I'm a baby. I'm new here. But let's move right along. Let's talk about our first topic. You guys, I'm really glad you joined us, but you've also joined us on kind of an oddly controversial week this week. There's been the last 7 days.
Gary.
There've been some, there've been
You
some.
could take a tame week and make it insane very easily. One tweet.
Yeah, basically. But first, let's start with Nostalrius, which is, for those of you who don't know, I'll give a real quick recap of what this situation is. A lot of people wanted to play what is called vanilla World of Warcraft, right? It's World of Warcraft without any of the expansions. Back when it was first released, they thought, oh, Blizzard has been doing these expansions. They don't like where the game has gone. We want to just play the beginning. And so they made private servers where they spent a lot of time re-scripting things.
And money, apparently.
And basically most of these places, I think, survive off of donations. Some of them sell exclusive items and stuff, but Nostalrius was one that was completely free to play and completely run off of just the support of the community.
And these are pirated clients, by the way.
Yes, and this is where the gray area comes in.
It's not very gray. But we're devs, so...
Well, I think the way they see it as a gray area is because if you
It's old, it's no longer accessible.
No, I think it's because if you purchased the base game and you're playing the game, like that's the rationale of it, right? Is I bought World of Warcraft, all I'm doing is playing on a server not run by Blizzard.
But they don't enforce who has bought the game.
Exactly, and that's where it gets a little
can't.
hinky. So, unsurprisingly, this server, which had hundreds of thousands of players on it, unsurprisingly, Blizzard has finally decided to bring the axe down and shut it down.
This is strange.
It's a really complex issue.
It is.
It's not one of those things where you can just be like, this is totally fine, and Blizzard is like not in the wrong at well, they're not in the wrong. This is what I can't even describe it.
I can describe it.
Technically, they're not at all in the wrong.
No.
So go ahead.
So I feel like Blizzard is right. They have the absolute right to shut this down legally, and they shouldn't shut it down.
Huh.
So it's because this is their fans expressing their love of their game, and I think especially the nostalgia of that original experience of playing World of Warcraft in the first year or 2 years.
Yeah.
It's back from a powerful time where WoW was burned in the memory of many, many fans. And so this is what video game developers create. This is why we're here. We want to give people those powerful experiences. So to me, it's if you look at what Blizzard actually creates, I mean, they make money, but they create those feelings in people. That's why they're here. Mm-hmm. Their shareholders would say that maybe that they're here for money, but basically that's not most of the people that are motivated to make games are there to create those feelings. So to me, to remove that and destroy it, it seems opposite of their mission.
Yeah, and there's a point to be made that maybe those people aren't the people that are going to be buying and playing the current game now, right? Like it probably wasn't taking away from their subscriber base very heavily.
And this is the hard part. Yeah, who knows?
And yeah, who knows is the true fact. And honestly, like part of me thinks maybe they did this in preparation for announcing legacy servers. Maybe they did this.
I doubt it.
And that's they've
how much
said
work
publicly,
that would be going back to old, like letting people choose the old version.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that would be really interesting if they did.
And it's
the opposite of an MMO, right?
Right.
You want MMO to play with your friends.
And they publicly said a couple times now too that they don't want to do that.
Oh, it'd be a nightmare. What do you do with all the characters? Right. What do you do with your character? How do you? It's a total nightmare.
Mm-hmm. And it's the thing is though, and aside from all this, like you said, they're totally in the right. They have every legal and, in a weird way, moral right to just say, yeah, we don't want you doing this. This is our game.
It's simpler for them to just not have to worry about this.
But at the same time, regardless of any of that, it's still just kind of a bummer because it's like this really vibrant, happy, great community that loved their game, an older version of their game, that just wanted to play it, that wasn't making money off of it, that just like is gone now.
Yep.
And it's sad.
It's sad.
It really is.
What I don't get is why Blizzard waited so long to take this down. I think that's why it becomes like such a big deal, is because this was an incredibly popular server. There's lots of people been playing on it. These developers have basically recreated.
Yeah.
They have to recreate the entire backend.
Oh my god.
Which is
Maybe the
kind of
client too.
insane.
You think they
necessarily
saved it? Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I guess that's true.
That's not a small amount of work.
No,
Actually,
it's
they
huge.
probably had to patch the client in some way.
I don't know. I don't know too much about the technical details of how they actually do this, but definitely like on the server end, they had to reproduce everything that Blizzard had created.
Which historically, lots of companies, or not companies, individuals in various countries have done, and they've shut down. So maybe that's another part of it. They have to, in order to show their enforceability. Like every time they shut down in the past, they've shut down clones like in China and elsewhere, right? I know I've seen news reports about this for a long time. I feel like they have to shut them down to keep their legal standing, to show, hey, by the way, it's not like we're just, we let some go and some don't. It's like when you're enforcing a trademark. If you let one trademark go, then that weakens your future case. So if they let this go, it could weaken them.
It's sort of similar. Obviously, there's not the nostalgia sentimentality aspect in this case, but like it's sort of similar to when Bethesda sued Mojang for Scrolls, right? Bethesda sued Mojang when they were coming out with their card game Scrolls, which is now defunct, saying it could be confused with the Elder Scrolls. And everyone was like, that's kind of a really thin case, but the point was made that they have to do that. They have to pursue those trademark complaints, because it's just, if they don't defend it, then somebody else is going to come along and it's just going to snowball.
I just realized what Blizzard should do here. They should hire the team.
Hire the Nostalrius team?
Yeah, they should absolutely hire them. So then it's official. They do it all on their own. It costs them nothing. It costs them almost nothing, and they keep all the fans and they keep their enforceability.
Well, they could have just given them a license essentially, and they could have even, if like the concern was money.
That'd work too.
I'm guessing the
Same
concern
idea.
wasn't
Yeah.
actually loss of revenue here for Blizzard.
Yeah.
Right.
It was probably more, I don't know, maybe confusing for players. Like they're playing on something that purportedly Blizzard made, but maybe it has issues. It doesn't represent the game as they, want it to be. Like,
Sure.
Like they probably think that that's not the greatest version of
true.
World of Warcraft. I mean, we've had this problem.
We've had this problem,
with
yeah.
everything we've worked on,
Yeah.
because we've done things that we've developed the game kind of in the public sphere, like kind of in early access model, going back to the original natural selection.
Yeah, natural section 106, or is it 10? No, 104.
Yeah, everyone always says that was the best version, because you made.
Because they don't remember all the exploits.
they see it quite differently than the developers see it.
Yeah.
So I mean, if the money was the issue, they could have given them a license and then actually collected revenue from them. They could have been charging a subscription for all the players who wanted to play on that server, which could have been going to Blizzard. Sounds kind of a headache, but
Just to play devil's advocate, does that encourage other people to do a similar thing? If you say, if you kind of validate one of these people that is making essentially a pirate server, then does that kind of give the green light to other people saying, hey, if you make your pirate server good enough, Blizzard will pay you for it?
But it sounds like, to me, this is like a net win. Like overall, this is a good thing.
The shutdown, or?
No, having the server.
Oh, gotcha.
Like, the more of these are out there, I mean, they're going to cater to someone, right? There's people who do want this. Presumably, they would have stopped playing WoW by now. But I mean, it seems like it's a good thing for the community, so it would be a good thing to encourage other people to do it.
Yeah. It's funny, too, also, this is kind of slightly unrelated.
But it's complicated.
Yeah, it's definitely complicated, but, like, it's funny that the current World of Warcraft kind of community, one of their biggest complaints is that they don't get updates frequently enough. Patches are like the big content drops kind of come too far apart. And then there's also this thriving community that's been playing the same game for like a decade.
Right.
It's interesting that the complaints of one group are like what the other group thrives on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neither here nor there, but a little
I was gonna
interesting.
say, it sounds a little bit like our political landscape right now.
Yeah.
Like you
this
can't
isn't-
please everyone. It's like people are saying the opposite things.
I mean, I think this is something that Blizzard does all the time. It shuts down like these, battle nets, unauthorized battle nets that pop up. And this case is different because it was presumably less shady than those. It's not just a way for people to play the game without paying Blizzard, but it was also this really big community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It and that's, I think, one of the reasons that a lot of people are angry about shutting down this specific server is it seems like they targeted it because it's so big, but it also was one of these servers that didn't charge money, didn't modify the game in any way. It had all like the Blizz-like stats or whatever and experience gains, and it was really, really pure in just trying to replicate old WoW. And I think people I think annoyed people more than if they had shut down like a pay-to-win, like heavily modified version of World of Warcraft vanilla.
Right.
Which is understandable, but it's also like one of those things where in the eyes of Blizzard and Blizzard legal, like kind of doesn't make a difference to them, right?
Yeah. Just a giant pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's a really weird, complex thing because it's really a shame that Blizzard is completely justified 100% in doing this and still did it, like you said.
The weird thing is also developer egos are, I wouldn't say they're fragile because they can't be if they're going to develop games. They don't last very long if they are. But it never feels good as a developer to have a whole bunch of people tell you that the best version was one of your old discarded versions. Mm-hmm. It just feels crappy.
Yeah.
And then so this is like rankling in their side for years, and they're talking about doing it for years more. It's like, it just doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
How are people actually playing? How could you play like base World of Warcraft for 10 years? Like, wouldn't you just hit the level cap?
It's a community, right?
Exhaust everything in the world?
I don't know.
I think it is just the community and the love of it, right? Because personally, I wouldn't have the stomach for that. Like, I would not
Start over the new character every time.
No, I could not do that.
Every month, you got a new character.
But I get that some people like find joy in that. But I'm not a huge like MMO guy in general though. So I think it's just tastes, It's tastes in games. There are people who don't like, Dark Souls at all because of that type of game, and there are people who don't like puzzle games at all in that type of game. That's fine. It's just it seems like it would get old kind of quick, but apparently it didn't. Let's jump along though. Let's move along to another complicated and
gender in video games.
Yeah, gender in video games.
Forced gender.
Well, I wanna talk about this I'll give a quick recap. Excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Again, Rust about a little less than a year ago enacted this thing that made. I think it was like a year ago they made it so that your race and your like dong size and all of these things were randomly generated based on your Steam ID. So you logged into the game, you had a character that looked like a person, and you could never change that character ever. It was locked to your Steam ID. There was no way to adjust it, no way to make a new one. And the idea was that you would start to be recognizable as who you are in game, not just because of the name tag over your head. And then they added gender to specific like people, like server admins could be women at that point. And they said this is coming to everybody eventually, and then they finally pushed it live. I think it's beginning of this week or end of last week. And a lot of people kind of lost their minds because they were like, I don't want to play as a woman. Like, what are you doing? And the point Gary Newman made, or at least that Facepunch made in their original post when they were saying this, is they said, we understand that this is unsettling for a lot of you, and we understand that many of you are playing as a gender that you do not identify with in real life, but realize that nothing has changed because 50% of the audience was already doing that, which is a really, really poignant way of saying,
suck it up.
Kinda,
Take a hit for the team.
Yeah.
Lots of people have been dealing with this for a long time, you crybaby.
And it was just, it was basically that. But like, and the other point I think that's important to make here and point out is that Gary Newman was saying, we're not taking choice away from anyone. We never gave you a choice. There was never supposed to be a character customizer in Rust. Its game has been in early access. Like, this is not something that was an option that is being removed. This is just how we envisioned the game, which I think is another important point. But like, the question I have for you guys as developers is, how do you respond to that sort of like really just across the board negative reaction to a change like that you kind of envisioned is just like a core part of the game? Like, is there a part of Facepunch that should say, man, our audience doesn't like this, maybe we should make characters customizable?
I think it's always important, when there's a big negative reaction to something, that you take a step back and see if, like, okay, did I make a mistake here? I think this is, if I was in their position, I would take a step back and say, no, we didn't make a mistake. This is actually a really legitimate change. You know, and maybe they're not trying to make a statement with it. Maybe they are, whatever. But like, I think they're totally justified in doing that. I mean, if it's like a gameplay balance change, you know, and lots of people are reacting negatively to it, maybe you made a mistake there. It's important to listen to that feedback. But I think that's the great thing about Gary is that he is.
He's like the Trump of the game dev world, which I apologize, Gary. I
said
know,
that.
but in the
Wow,
only
man.
good way that you could say that, which is he's impervious.
Yeah.
The more he
like,
says that's outlandish, the more, I don't know, people love him.
Well, he's
basically.
okay. He's okay with the fact that people might be unhappy with something. He's going
used
to
to
do
it.
what he thinks is the right thing to do.
And he posts
That's
like poop
great.
pictures on Twitter, like his son taking a poo, and he like sticks it on Twitter. It's like he's got a huge following.
He definitely knows how to stir the pot.
He does, and he's such a sweet, nice person. That's what's so funny. It's his demeanor is so different.
The thing that really drives me crazy about this, as somebody who makes games, is this thing that we've seen before too, where just because some games do things in a certain way, like a lot of games have customization for your character, there's this belief among some gamers that all games should have that. And we found this with natural selection too. Like it's first-person shooter. Call of Duty is also a first-person shooter. If Call of Duty does something in a certain way, then we also have to do that in natural selection. But they're completely different games, and that's actually one of the reasons I really like about The Witness is that it's like different than other games. It's its own game. It's not like feeling the need to just repeat all of the features and whatnot, design decisions from other games. So yeah, people need to accept like not every game is going to have all the features. It's not going to have character customization just because it's an MMO-ish kind of game.
We've seen other. I mean, I think to answer your question on this, further, we've had some problems where we would make a change and then like more than a small number of people would hate the change, and sometimes we reverse those. But we've seen other people. Well, actually, like our most recent, it's not even a change, but I would say the thing that we have stood by recently that some people really don't like is our nonviolent stance in Subnautica. And it's just, for us, it's not negotiable. It's just, sorry, this is what we set out to make. And for us to change that or remove it would be, to me, like killing it. Not everyone on the dev team would feel that way.
Be like taking AK-47 and gunning it down.
And just shooting those stalkers. But I mean, not everyone on the dev team feels that way. I think that's another thing too. But this is the game that we set out to make, and we're not going to change that. But also, like Darkest Dungeon, they released I think this is the Corpse and Hound update, I think is what it was. I can't remember.
Was that the one that made the bodies or the piles of mush?
It made the
whatever?
piles like stop. It used to be that when you kill a monster, the monsters would move forward.
Yeah.
They would adjust their rank order, which totally changes the game. And Tyler was talking about how basically it just like made the game really broken because because so many different abilities and weapons in that game are about only the front two guys or only the front and the back or only the middle two. So when you have something where if your weapons are all aiming towards the front and you kill the guys in the front and they die and then the guys in the back move towards the front, this is suddenly a much less interesting game.
Yeah.
So he made it. But it was such a huge change to add corpses that then hold your place in line.
Yeah.
This was like a big design change, and he just got killed for it. I mean, he knew it was the right choice for the game. We've talked to him at length about this. He knew it was the right choice for the game, like spiritually, game design wise, depth wise. Even fictionally, he liked the idea of it. I mean, everything was right, and he really kept asking his team, like, do you guys agree? I know this is going to be a big change. We've been in early access. We've had a great launch so far. They all basically agreed with him. They launched. They got a huge negative reaction, and mostly, I think, from what I can tell, because the game just changed so much, it was less about the actual change itself and more just people reacting to their baby being changed. And there was like some negative people that got so negative that they started a campaign to thumbs down the voting to create a hate. It was a hate campaign.
Yeah.
He got tons of email about this. People were changing their reviews from positive to negative, and it got really, really nasty. It affected him really personally, and in the end they still stuck with that change. And I think that's really important. You have to know, every developer has to decide what's actually important to them and why they're in this business at all.
And that's one of the interesting things about developing early access games, or at least from my perspective, watching early access games kind of evolve and develop, is that they do change fundamentally a lot from when they first come out to when they hit that 1.0 thing. And the early access tag kind of allows that to a certain extent. It makes that more lenient, where if you were in a game that was just launched and it like changed that substantially, people I think used to be less okay with that than it happened in early access. But now it's changing where early access games feel more like real games in a lot of cases. Like when I play Subnautica, obviously there are things that are still being developed, but it feels like a game.
You should have seen it a year ago.
Right.
It didn't even have a submarine, a little over a year ago.
And so it's interesting to watch something evolve like that, but it raises the question in my mind of if I was developing an early access game that a ton of people bought and it was a first-person shooter and everybody loved it, and 2 years later it was a puzzle game.
Right.
Just because I said, you know what, I really want to go this direction with this game.
Sorry, your refund policy window is expired.
Right. Is that okay? I guess it's just the development process, and that's what early access means, is you're feeling it out. You're developing the game.
Yeah.
But that would be, we haven't seen anything that nearly that drastic yet, but it's kind of the same issue, just at the extreme.
Yeah.
Rust itself has been
it's a pretty big
dramatic change from when they first... they basically
new engine.
started at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had zombies. It was like DayZ initially, basically, and all that's kind of changed. So, and there was basically just as much outcry whenever those changes happened too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like this change in Rust. It was exciting for me to I don't really play Rust, but to fire up the game and check out what I look like. It was really exciting.
And who are you?
Giddy.
Yeah.
I'm a tall black man.
Cool.
Much like
not
I
a girl
am in real life.
I agree. I think this whole kind of controversy and people being just angry about being a woman, which is a whole topic in itself.
Yeah.
I really am annoyed by that fundamentally, but then I'm also annoyed by that because it's taking away from a conversation of this is a really cool feature that no one's ever really done in a survival game like this. The idea that you could recognize people based on the way that they just look is that's really cool. I've never seen that in an open world game.
Actually, it's interesting
that
they recognize you less as you get more clothes.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's that's an interesting dynamic too. I don't know if that's good, but
they're gonna have to add a whole Paris Fashion Week patch to the game, so everyone can express
clear coding,
themselves.
so people can still identify you, but you're still got protection.
I think it's a great feature. I'm excited about taking that concept and doing things with it in other contexts.
There's
something in the game that's fundamentally tied
unchangeable.
Unchangeable.
Are you guys gonna add character customization to Subnautica? It's only
Not
first
if I can
person,
help it.
right?
Yeah.
That's the other thing is I feel like. Well, I was gonna say I feel like most people play Rust in first person anyway.
Yeah,
so this is our problem. So we have people on the team who really want a female player model in Subnautica, and of course, in theory, I love that too. I love the concept. I don't like the idea that people are. Well, so this is. I guess this is the conflict, right? I was about to say I don't like the fact that people are forced to play someone they don't want to. But what I'm really saying is I don't like it when women are forced to play men. But for some reason, it's really cool that men have to play as women for once. I guess it's a matter of quantity.
Some comeuppance.
Yeah. So I don't like the fact that women have to play as a man in Subnautica. But it just doesn't matter. It's not part of the game in any way. It's completely... And even if you do change, I don't even know what we change. The pain sounds. It's not like you're going to have giant breasts that you're looking down at. We would never do that.
Just change the torso model into a giant white square, or just a gray block, and that's it.
It's a lot of work for nothing.
Game, I don't know. You can see it in Rust, I guess. You pull up your paper doll and you can see your character, but still, it seems kind of not a non-issue, really.
So, non-issue. It's we have big things to work on. And even then, also, you start the game, and before the game starts, you have to choose your sex. Why? That's the weirdest choice before the game starts. Choose your sex. Why? Does it matter? No. We'll just do it. It's but then, of course, people, I've definitely seen on Twitter where people are kind of just assuming that I'm like this evil person because I don't want to put a girl inside Subnautica.
Yeah.
Especially because we have so many women players and kid players. So
Clearly,
it's a nuanced issue.
Clearly, your refusal to add violence to the game is another evidence of how terrible of a human you are. I think.
Well, that's true too.
You're just rotten to the core, man.
You should, yeah. There's a lot of threads about this, but yeah, it's about how you're violating the whole idea of a survival game, and I don't know. We shouldn't be adding politics to games, because it's obviously political. It is actually political, but
Charlie Cleveland is coming for your guns.
that's right. I would if I could.
As long as you don't add those campaign things that you stick in your lawn into
There you
Subnautica.
go. We only have one.
Okay, yeah.
Just our candidate.
Well, let's jump along to Subnautica then, because I'm excited to see it in action in Oculus